Welcome to Just a Cup on Bleav. I am Bryan Fetzer, your host, and we are about ready to have a very intriguing and amazing conversation. I want to ask you a question as a listener. Think about this. Think about being young, starting your own business. Oh, by the way, and being a Division I college athlete. What do you think that would be like? And all the obstacles of college and all the obstacles of business kind of put together. And today we're going to talk to Sydney Moore, who Division I volleyball player and has her own podcast and has been unbelievable and in so many ways, has won an ESPY and was one of the Women of the Year by Glamour magazine, which we're going to definitely talk about that a little bit more. Sydney Moore, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thanks for having me on, Bryan, and thanks for such a nice introduction. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm sitting there going, this young lady has done so much, and you're so young. That's amazing. And I
Thank
think
you.
in the new age, I'll call it the new age of college athletics, with the name, image, and likeness, it is expanded the thought process of student athletes way more than probably ever before. Do you
Oh yeah.
agree?
Oh yeah. I always say like the era of the dumb athlete is over.
That's a great statement.
Like that's just not going to happen anymore.
So you went to school to start off with at Cornell in the
Mhm.
Ivy League, then transferred to Syracuse for your graduate year. What was that like going through? We'll talk about the transfer process first because I want to talk about the transfer portal. What was that like choosing a school coming from the Ivy League? I mean, I coached at Harvard. I know what that routine is like. And I coached in the ACC, so I understand what Syracuse is like.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
It was a lot. That's my first thought is it was a lot because there wasn't really a lot of information about
Hmm.
the grad transfer process at that point. I was really just the second class or so who was doing that, especially with the COVID years and everything. And then being at Cornell, we don't really get a lot of transfers. Most people don't transfer out. People are going to sacrifice an Ivy League degree, and then they don't really let a lot of people in. So everyone I knew that had gone into the transfer portal, it was because of a negative experience with their team, or they needed to leave for some specific reason. Whereas for me, it was just the opportunity to keep playing. So it was really difficult to figure out what I wanted from that. And, I obviously wasn't going to be able to find Cornell again in another program. So
Sure.
it took a lot of time for me to figure out exactly what I wanted from a new program and just navigating how to get that. Because that's the other thing. I was only there for 1 year, so when you think about scholarships and, do they have room for my position? Am I needed? It was a lot.
And you're a California girl.
Yeah.
I mean, born in Pennsylvania, but you're,
Yeah.
you're a California girl. You go to school in New York for both schools, not
Yeah.
just one, for both schools. You went from like cold New York to colder New York.
Yeah. Yeah. Cornell and Syracuse are only 45 minutes away from each other. So I go back and see some of my old friends. They come up here. It's really cool, actually.
I mean, I went to school in New York myself. I went to Canisius College in
Mhm.
Buffalo. So
You get it.
I understand that whole process of the New York winter weather is not, it's definitely not Southern California.
But there's something so special about Central New York, too. Like, everyone thinks I'm absolutely crazy. They're like, why would you move from San Diego and come up to Central New York? And the first time was just opportunity. Like, Cornell was my only like serious offer that I, thought would be good for me. But then after that, staying, like it was actually between some Southern California schools and Syracuse that I decided to stay. I don't know. I like it out here. I think if I was in a bigger city, I think I'd be too distracted. I'd want to do like too many other things.
I could completely understand that. And when you talk about being distracted as a student athlete and being at a prestigious academic school like Cornell and in Syracuse as well, the distractions of a student athlete, what is that like now? Really, with everything that's going on in the world of sports, what is that like for you? Or what was that like for you?
Yeah, I feel like a huge part of it, I mean, distraction isn't always negative. It's just like other things, right? Like for me, I really valued being part of my campus community. Like at Cornell
Mm.
and even here at Syracuse, like I'm that kind of person. I want to go to every tailgate. I want to know everyone on campus. Like I'm just, I don't know, I'm sentimental like that. So that's kind of what I mean. Like I think if I went to a bigger city, I'd be probably doing things like more around that city than my actual campus. But the distractions for a student athlete, I think the biggest one is social.
Hmm.
The first is just, when you are going through the recruiting process and you're thinking about like, hey, where do I want to go to school? You have very specific things. And the people and the culture of your team and of your school is definitely there, but you don't know exactly the specific people that you're going to play with. And I think a lot of student athletes kind of struggle with the social aspect when they first get to school or even throughout their whole experience of just figuring out who your people are because your true people aren't always on your team. And struggling with that can be a distraction in some ways. Academics and just everything it takes for networking and all that, especially at Cornell and at Syracuse, was huge. And then obviously social media with NIL.
Okay, let's talk NIL because
Yeah.
it's such a hot button topic because
Yeah.
you have the side that is it's killing college athletics, it's making it professional, it's whatever you want to say on that side, and then the other side you say, well, it's opportunity, it's a chance to prosper off of yourself. Give me your thoughts on what you think of when you think of name, image, and likeness.
It's so crazy now. It's changed every single year since it's passed. Like I think it's almost best to start. Like I used to think, oh wow, cool opportunity. I mean, I grew up in an age where YouTube and influencers were starting to become a thing, but I would say my generation or my segment of the generation, we didn't realize that it was fake. When I watched YouTube videos or Instagram influencers, there was no title for that. It was just people that I aspired to be like. So I didn't realize that a lot of the things that they were doing weren't, the full truth or that they were showing a glamorous life. So when I saw the opportunity to get NIL deals and like get free product and stuff like them, I thought it was going to be, oh, I get to kind of be like these people, like, oh, I get to become famous, right? Then it became an opportunity as I did more NIL deals and I did more policy and advocacy, which we'll talk about. NIL became an opportunity and a way for me to kind of practice the job that I might want post graduation. Now, NIL, I don't know, it's a hot stove, right? Like it's a hot stove. Like, hey, it might get you what you need. You might be able to get something out of it, cook or whatever. But you got to be careful not to get too close. So that's kind of where I feel with NIL now.
That makes a lot of sense because everything tends to go to extremes,
Yeah.
especially in our society now. I mean, there's very little middle ground.
Yeah.
It's one extreme to the other, and you see students that the phrase maybe more so in football or men's basketball that the term student athlete, there's a nice little asterisk beside it because if you've transferred 3-4 times in a 5-year period, are you really a student athlete?
Yeah, the credit transfer doesn't add up.
I mean, how does that even work? But you're coming from a background of the Ivy League, and you said Cornell. I mean, you don't transfer out. The whole thing is get in.
Yeah.
Ivy League 3. So you get in and you kind of have the best of both worlds. Hey, I get my degree in the Ivy League at Cornell, and then I get to go, see what it's like per se at a Power 4 conference or whatever you want to phrase that to be. But I think some people lose sight of the fact that name, image, and likeness isn't the $4 million deals that some quarterback gets for football. Name, image, and likeness deals are so varied.
Yep.
Give them an example or give the audience an example of like a true name, image, and likeness deal for non-craziness.
Yeah. I think that's where people like go wrong sometimes is the very first like what NIL is exactly that. It's literally your name, image, and likeness. It's the ability that any other person walking around on campus has to use their name, their, a photo of them or something about what they do to make money off of it. So, gaining your name, image, and likeness rights or all of that wasn't like, it was huge because we couldn't do it before, but it's not this new monumental theory in this thing. Like people have been doing this forever. And so that's like the first thing I think people need to realize is just kind of coming down to earth a little bit about what the opportunity is. It's not necessarily putting athletes on a pedestal. What makes it such a big industry is the power that athletes have to, influence consumers to make purchases or to attend events or to think about different things like what I do with policy. So that's kind of the first thing I always think about with NIL and kind of how I've noticed it. But examples of a deal, NIL is free coffee. It's
I can appreciate free coffee. I can appreciate free coffee.
Coffee. I think the most simple kind of NIL deal is one of my favorite places at Cornell and Syracuse. Actually, they have locations at both as College Town Bagels. I love College Town Bagels so much that I can talk to their manager and say, hey, I want can I post a story every day with my coffee and get this $3 coffee for free. It's a really low cost marketing for you. Yeah. I really don't do much. It's really minimal effort. That is NIL at the very basis of it. And then it can build up all those different ways. But that's kind of what I always tell student athletes who say they're afraid of NIL or they're like trying to figure out how to get into NIL. Mm-hmm. It's like, ask for a free coffee and see how you feel. And then we can talk about making this a business.
I think when we talked a little bit before getting on and recording about LinkedIn, mm-hmm. And I mean, I didn't start I wasn't on LinkedIn until after I got out of coaching. I was well into my late 40s before that happened. And that's where I, met you. And other people had suggested you to me and said, hey, you got to get her on and talk about this stuff because she's phenomenal at it. And so I started, we started that process, and networking, as you know, that's what makes the world kind of go around.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily what you know, it's who you know and who knows you. Mm-hmm. Correct?
Yeah. The who knows you is definitely something I'm learning now. It's really exciting that you said that, but yeah, the who knows you is definitely a huge piece of it for NIL and for everything.
Do you have a lot of, I mean, I started to see more and more student athletes, getting on LinkedIn and starting putting themselves out there well ahead of time when they're popular or when they're in their prime of being a collegiate athlete. Have you seen the same?
Oh yeah. I mean, right now, this for women athletes as a whole, your college career is the point of your highest earning potential. Even if you do go play in some of the professional leagues, you have, the highest likelihood of making the most money, especially from endorsements during your college, not necessarily when you're professional, because you're not competing with as many markets. If you go play pro for the LA Sparks, now you're competing with every single pro team in LA and every single influencer in LA. But at Syracuse people love Syracuse student athletes. So me going to College Town Bagels, or later tonight I'm going to Apex and bringing some people, like, this is where I have the most value in terms of working with brands. So going to LinkedIn, where the brand managers live and where they're looking for advice and ideas, is where to go. That's kind of how I was able to start the second piece of my career, saying, hey, I have all this experience, and posting it onto LinkedIn, because apparently that's where the brand managers get their ideas. So if I can go there first, that's you reach many more people than individual pitches to their email.
You mentioned the female athlete, mm-hmm. and it's been amazing. The Lily Dunns, the Angel Reeses, the Caitlin Clarks, the meteoric rise, it seems, to the National Women's Soccer League.
Yeah.
I mean, you start seeing, we talked earlier too about, the Professional Volleyball Federation, BVF and Love. There seems to be an explosion of women's athletics on the national stage and kind of in the forefront of I don't want to say influence because they're just being athletes, but you start to see more and more of that you didn't see even 5-6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
Investment. It's money. It's money because, and this is where I'm so excited for all the athletes and, people who are here now. But I think about, I don't even know, maybe 10 years ago or so when I was in middle school, like early middle school, I watched every single UConn basketball game when I was in middle school and high school, right? Like I knew all the players. I didn't know, I wasn't making edits of her like people are of Paige Beckers, but I knew Skylar Dick, everything I could find about Skylar Diggins or Brittany Griner or all these different people, I knew. So the interest and the excitement about women's sports and college sports, I don't think that that's necessarily changed. These people have already been here. What we're doing is investing in the sport and creating more opportunities for that, those fans and that interest to be seen. And now that's just causing even more investment and even more things, right? Like even as an athlete, it wasn't really until I realized that there's people that are interested in what I do that I started posting more. It wasn't until people literally said, no, Sydney, we want to see what you're doing. Please post more. That I decided, okay, let me create like an Instagram strategy and start trying to do this. So I think that's the huge thing. It's like whoever the first person was that finally listened and was like, okay, we're going to invest in this ad. We're going to invest in whatever. That's really what the tipping point was. I don't think it's really anything about, the girls are phenomenal, but we could have had big stars 10 years
a long time ago. Right?
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break, but I want to get back and let's talk about it a little bit. Because I think that in itself is an amazing story in itself.
Thank you.
We are having Just a Cup with Sydney Moore on the Bleav Network. Make sure you like, subscribe, Apple, Spotify. It's on YouTube now, on Bleav.com, really anywhere podcasts are found. Just a Cup. My name is Bryan Fetzer, and I have the absolute pleasure, and we're just getting started because there's so much to unpack with Sydney. You started a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about it, which is a phenomenal name.
Thank you.
Did you think of that or did a friend think of it?
It's so funny. So I'm one of those people, I get paralyzed with decision making. Like I want everything to be perfect. And so the podcast, very much like you, didn't start off as a podcast. It started as an Instagram reel series to fulfill a requirement for a meta program that I was in about a content series. And I was like, okay, I need a name for this series. Let's talk about it. Like that's that's clever and it's basic. And then I realized when I, really made the podcast the whole thing, I needed to keep it. But there's like 1,000 podcasts called Let's Talk About It. But I think what makes mine stick is just, being consistent and really leaning into the marketing and everything.
Well, it's a great name. I am the least creative person that there is. I don't have fashion sense. I don't have anything. I give that to my wife, So, coming up with a title, I think it's so simple.
Yeah.
It's so true because the topics that you talk about, and one of the things that, you talk about a lot is the mental side of sports and about life. And it's been a stigma for so long that, they got issues. It's a problem. Whatever negative thought you could possibly say, when people said mental health, nuts, crazy, delusional, it wasn't somebody's health, the mental side. And listen to you kind of dive into that and talk about that. Why is that a subject that means a lot to you?
Yeah, my first thought with the podcast was that there were so many things that I was doing or that I had gone through during my college athlete experience, that I felt like I was going through alone. And so I was like, let's talk about it, right? Like other people probably feel this way too. Or now that I'm older and I feel like I can be more vulnerable with my friends, like now we're talking about it. And I just wish that we had talked about it when we were actually struggling with it and not when it was healed. And that's like a huge thing with everything. Like all of the athletes, all of the companies and all these different people that we look up to, we read their autobiographies and their memoirs after the fact. And we get to hear about, oh, I wish that I had just pushed through, like just push through it and you never know and everything's going to be great. But like, what about the actual moment when you were actually freaking out? How did you actually get through it in that moment? And so that's kind of the idea of let's talk about it.
Is there something, some specific aspect that you think college athletes struggle with the most from a mental standpoint?
I think that they misattribute like where the struggle is like coming from. Like a lot of the times we blame it on ourselves instead of realizing all the things that have happened to make us this way or to cause this issue. So I think having that information or being able to talk through it and like why you feel this way and how it manifests in your life and all that makes a huge difference. It definitely did for me. My sophomore year, I really, really struggled with my mental health. Like it was scary for everyone, especially me. It was just very hard. And a lot of the different topics and things that now come up on the show are little things that I was thinking about during the period. And that's kind of where the list of episode topics came from.
I mean, that's hard to be real. It's not comfortable.
Yeah.
I said it a million times when I was coaching that you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And you're doing that, being able to expose or bring to light what so many others are struggling with. If they're struggling with, if you're struggling with it, there's a pretty good likelihood somebody else is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Have you had comments from friends or teammates or other athletes to reach out to say, hey, man, that was such a positive thing to me, or even just give you topics?
Yeah. People give me topics all the time, which is really fun. The most common one is people want me to talk about dating in college. I'm like, okay, you got to figure out how to get that one out.
You know what? That for a college athlete,
it'd be a good episode.
That's a really good episode. That's a good episode for anybody. I mean,
no one talks about it.
No, because now dating has so much to do with this thing.
Yeah.
Like it's to deal with, everybody's texting. And I think there's less true relational kind of where you get to know somebody, actually get to know somebody, as opposed to, the emojis. And I don't know what the emojis are. I don't think I could create an emoji for a text message, but I'm old, so it's
but the dating one, the dating one will be fun. A lot of ones, actually, I've always been interested in sports business and advocacy in sports, but that's been something that people have been requesting more of, which is really fun. I also kind of just take it, not always formal requests, but if I get the same question asked to me a couple of times, then I start to share it. That's also kind of a basis of the show is, hey, I'm out here talking to different brands, going to different events and all this stuff. The student athletes aren't hearing about this. Again, let's talk about it. So we brought on a lawyer that's working on the Big House versus NCAA case, and she broke down, the truth of what's actually going on and defining things. We've had personal finance people come on. We're starting to talk about taxes for student athletes, hopefully some contract negotiation advice, like really just trying to bring on, anything that I felt like, oh, my teammates or people have struggled with. That's fair game for an episode.
That is, the two things that you just brought up that I think they should be a given in college. Taxes, because we all do it. What's the adage? There's, things
just gotta die and pay taxes. All I gotta do.
Die and pay taxes. Those are two things that everybody has to go through.
Yeah.
But the taxes and the finances, because it's those are life aspects that everybody, I don't care, socioeconomic, race, gender, everybody's got to learn about those things. And we kind of skim over them at the college experience or even at the high school experience. We don't talk enough about balancing checkbooks, which I guess it's online accounts now or whatever, but we don't talk about that, or investments. How you put a little bit of money away and you can set yourself up down the road.
Yeah. And it's so complicated now with NIL and all these different things. That's my big thing is whatever you are going to do with NIL and the opportunities you have, that's fine. But make sure you're making this decision fully informed, right? Like you're going to enter into all these deals and signing all these contracts. Do you know what you're signing? Do you know what protects you even? Like,
Right.
are you recognize that this money might not be taken out in your taxes when you're paid? And, just don't make plans that you can't, follow up with and stuff. It's so important. And that's not the brand's focus. They don't care.
Right.
The athletic departments don't necessarily even care anymore. So
You're
the only one
1099.
looking out for you is you.
I mean, you're a 1099. You're a contractor. You're not. They're not worrying about Social Security or Medicaid or any of that stuff. Were the things that you kind of think about now? Was that something your mom and dad talked to you about back in the day? Or
Yeah.
how did you get to this point?
Both of my parents.
Sure. Like, how did you get to this point?
Yeah, I'm just in middle school. Like, I wonder the social implications of name, image, and likeness. No, no, that's really funny. No, I actually didn't even think I wanted to work in sports. I went into Cornell. I was a psychology and neuroscience student. I thought I wanted to go be a doctor. Both of my parents were athletes. My mom played professionally. My dad played semi-pro football and basketball. And growing up, they always made sure I understood how things worked just in general. So, this is how TVs work. This is how Wi-Fi works, down to, school is, organized like this way because this is, the best timeline. Just the way things work. My mom's an engineer. My dad also, works with a lot of different companies. So that was just the way they worked. I was raised to be a nerd and very inquisitive.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, it's needed, especially these days. And then playing sports, I played basketball. I played like on the EYBL, kind of, that whole circuit growing up all the way into high school, and then started playing volleyball in high school. And so I experienced the toxic, youth sports culture. I experienced the business of sports. I knew about recruiting and professional sports from a very young age because my parents talked about it and it was a goal that I had for myself. So going into even being in college, that these were all things that I was aware of and just things that we would talk about at the dinner table. By the time it was super cool. Like, and I was raised an only child. Like my brothers were way older. So, I didn't get to choose what we were talking about. We're not going to switch the conversation
I love
from, finances and what's happening on Wall Street to the Hannah Montana finale as much as I wanted to. So I had to boss up and figure out what was happening if I wanted to be entertained. So by the time I got to college, this idea of like advocacy, policy, things going on was already something I was encouraged to think about. So we can talk about voice and sport in depth. But when my first opportunity to get involved in sports advocacy came in, I feel like I was really well prepared for that. And that just started this whole trajectory of falling into this industry at this perfect time period and all of that.
Let's talk about voice and sport a little bit.
Yeah.
Because that was another, I mean, how did you even get started into that aspect, the advocacy portion? Because people, a lot of times when you hear the word advocacy, a lot of times it's negative. It's very, negative for people while you're an advocate for whatever it might be. And, voice and sport, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So I would say I'm an advocate, but I'm a marketer. Advocacy is probably the hardest marketing job in the world because you're getting people to make a move or to care about something, usually very little budget, very little upside for them. That's direct, right? And the people that you're advocating for, obviously they get a benefit, but everyone else there's not really a direct benefit from them depending on how they think. So I got started at Voice in Sport April of 2020. So I was in the middle, kind of ending my senior year, going into freshman year of college. And a friend of mine that I had gone to high school with posted an article with them about her experience as a Black woman in soccer. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you wrote this. That's so cool. Like, you're such a badass. Like, I could never write something like this for the whole world and all our friends to see. And she's like, no, I think you could. You should write one. So that's how it got started, just talking about being a woman in sports, being a Black woman in sports. And they really liked it. And they're like, hey, you know, we're not just an Instagram page that's like posting articles. We actually want to be like a whole women in sports online platform with mentorship and all this different things. We think you could help us build this. Like, do you want to come on as like a founding intern? And so that's what I did. I mean, I had months before I went to Cornell. They had canceled our season. So I was like, yeah, it sounds like I have a year and a half to do this. Like, why not? Like, I don't know anything. I need something to do. And so I joined on. I just stayed there and just kept getting more responsibility in the company all the way up until we started a foundation, the Voice in Sports Foundation, and I was essentially their director of advocacy. So I led Title IX legislation and talking to different athletic departments about their compliance with Title IX. That's like a lot of specifics there.
That's actually a specific thing that you talk about right now with Title IX, with all the uncertainty that could be surrounding with the whole House settlement. And you hear so many snippets, and sadly today, from a media standpoint, who knows if somebody's telling you the full story. Everybody's trying to get sound bites. Everybody's trying to get the clickbait for whatever it might be. And it doesn't matter left, right, up, down, middle, center, does it? I mean, everybody tries to do the same thing. So, with Title IX, I mean, because I started off coaching females. That was the vast majority of my coaching career. And to see it kind of elevate, but now, I mean, you become pros. I mean, if college sports becomes professional, does Title IX still apply? Mm-hmm. I mean, where is that at? So I'm curious to get your intake on that aspect of the new college athletics.
Yeah. So I guess there's two parts to that are the big things in the news that we can do. The first is that Title IX doesn't apply to revenue sharing and all of that. So there's truth in both sides of the story. So for the House case specifically, Title IX does not apply to the exact case at hand because the case is about antitrust. It's about prohibiting the free market system that we have in the United States. So because it's about the market and where the market was at that time for those athletes, Title IX gender equity does not apply. There's no government thing that men and women have to be equal in what they earn for endorsements and all that kind of stuff. Now, if this goes into effect and now schools are able to pay their athletes, then Title IX does still apply from a legal perspective right now, regardless of how an administration chooses to interpret the law. The argument that people are making with the interpretation of the law is saying like, oh, well, this, revenue sharing isn't like an academic benefit. It doesn't fit all students. This is something totally different. This is about revenue. It shouldn't apply. The actual law, I know I'm getting in here. The actual law of Title IX is only 37 words. So people think, oh, it's really flexible. But the Office of Civil Rights, which is within the Department of Education, they have a framework for Title IX that they use to evaluate compliance. That hasn't changed. And just because that is the framework or interpretation they use doesn't mean that it's not the law. It's still the law. If someone sues a school saying you're not following Title IX, the Office of Civil Rights uses that framework to decide if they're breaking the law or not. So that's still the law. So regardless of what the House case says, at this point, schools will still be required to follow Title IX. And this isn't just my opinion. This is from an unreleased episode of Let's Talk About It with Arthur Bryant, a leading Title IX attorney.
That's a great plug there.
Yeah. This isn't just like me just like chatting. Like this is the highest legal minds that we can get. That's their opinion.
And that, I mean, it's so important for people to understand that, and not to just assume the worst.
Yeah.
That, hey, now it's going to go, women's sports are going to be gone. It's going to be just chaos. I mean, that's.
There's also a financial part of it too. So even if schools don't want to do the right thing, morally, they have an incentive to invest in women's sports. So it might, be a slower pace than what we've been seeing, but women's sports will continue to grow.
Well, if someone, when you're talking about investing in sport and you're talking about marketing and so forth, last time I checked, it's pretty even between men and women. I mean, there's, if you don't advertise to a populace, you're missing the boat, because there's a lot of females out there that that go to games, that watch, that are a part. I mean, I've seen some incredible soccer matches, and you mentioned UConn earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, I think my father was a football coach for 40 some years. He watched more UConn women's basketball than he probably watched college football.
Yeah.
He loved Gino. He loved all the Diana Taurasi, and you start going down the Rebecca Lobo. I mean, I kind of laugh because, I never was a basketball person, but I remember almost every basketball player that came out of UConn. Yeah. And it was because they won. They were successful, and they had an aura about them that, and you were way too young to remember the Pat Summitt days. But I mean, I remember the battles between Tennessee and UConn and women's basketball. I mean, that was must watch TV. I mean,
I'm not aware, but I've been told because my mom was recruited by Pat Summitt to play basketball, and she always blames my grandmother for not going, because my grandmother wanted her to go to Northwestern because of the school and how great the school was.
I can understand
so my mom's always like, we could have won a national championship, and you love the world you end up in, but it was funny.
I will tell you, I mean, what I remember the most about Pat Summitt is her famous stare. Mm-hmm. If you look it up and kind of see if somebody's listening or watching that doesn't know that Pat Summitt stare, my knees would shake. I'm like, I'm nervous. I'm not even on the court. I'm outside watching it on the couch. Yeah. So there is so many opportunities to be able to build up and to persona. And I'm fired up to see women's sports, continue to get the platform, I would say, that it should have. Absolutely, man. Sydney, you got me fired up. I'm pretty excited about things. I get two questions for you left. What advice to a college student athlete that wants to get themselves set up for the long term? What are some advice that you would give one of your peers, or one of a student athlete, on how they can get things going, how they should get things going? Not from an athletic part, from the other side.
It's from life, like setting up for life after, and your experience now. I think thinking about where you are beyond like this exact moment, like how you feel in this exact moment. Like, where do you feel you are in life in a little bit of a way? Like, are you happy with your friendships? Are you happy with where your athletic career and how it's going? Do you have an idea of what you might want to be doing post college, or at very least, what do you like doing right now and what you're interested in or excited about or curious about? Kind of figure what those things are, and start working down that list and figuring out, how can I get to where I want to be, or how can I make this better? If you're not happy with your friendships right now, or you don't feel like you really have people on campus, what are the things that you like to do? What are the characteristics of the people who, the people you think are your people, and start going to those events or start talking to those people who are acting that way. If you are really curious about this one topic, or like are frustrated with how something's going in your athletic department, start asking questions about it or researching it, Googling it, like that kind of thing. Just finding more information about, where you are and where you want to be, I think is a great first step. And once you find out, what you need to know or what you need to do, slowly start, taking steps to that. You're never just going to wake up one day and know what it is. So the earlier you start, the more time you have, and you can feel a little bit better about it. I feel like a lot of people push all those things to the background until you're either graduating or you just have a freak out. And that's what I did.
I can completely, I've seen that many times as a coach. Many times as a coach. What advice would you give the younger you?
I wish I had more fun.
Had more fun?
Yeah. I wish that high school me and early college me didn't guilt myself for like having fun. Like I would go do things, and I was always a very social person. I like always said yes to like events and club meetings and different things like that. But I wish that I allowed myself to just enjoy that. I think I was always trying to check off a box in some way or like reach a specific goal, that I didn't always enjoy the process. And now I'm starting to realize that the process is kind of the whole point.
Wow. That's deep. That's good. That's really good.
Thank you.
That's spoken kind of coachish as well too.
Really? Everyone keeps telling me like, "Oh, do you want to be a coach?" I'm like, "No." They're like, "But you do." I like coach camps at home over the summer. Sometimes I do like one-on-one coaching with different girls, and people are always like, "You should be a coach." And I'm like, "No, the best part about being a coach is that I know that this ends at some point and I can go home." I love coaching. I mostly love seeing people who are also really passionate or excited about the same topic, and then you can add to it. I think that's like the most fun.
That's a huge piece.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me. Enlightening, like you can't believe. You have such a confidence and such an aura about you.
Thank you.
It's infectious, which is a great thing. Don't ever lose that. Just keep rolling there. Mom and Dad did a great job of instilling some wisdom to you that you probably don't even realize you have. I can assure you that.
I'll do my best to keep it. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Absolutely. Hey, Just a Cup on Bleav. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, every place. And Sydney, where can they get a hold of you if they want to watch your shows or just connect with you?
Yeah, the best place is Instagram. That's where I am the most. I'm slightly too old for TikTok at this point. At Sydney.Moore, 2 S's and 2 M's. And then you can follow the Let's Talk About It podcast at LTBI pod on all platforms.
Awesome. Great one. Have a great one, everybody. God bless.